The courtroom was silent. Too silent. All eyes turned as a tall black woman in her early 40s stepped into the room. Her uniform was sharp, her posture unshaken, and her presence carried an authority that could not be ignored. She was General Amara Daniels, the first black woman in U.S. history to earn 4 stars in the Army. Decorated, respected, and feared on the battlefield, yet on this day, she wasn't here as a soldier. She was here as a citizen, quietly observing a local case that had caught her attention. But what happened next would shake the walls of that courthouse, and end careers before the hour was done. When Amara took her seat in the back row, she overheard 2 officers whispering crude remarks about a young black defendant standing trial. She had lived her life protecting freedom, defending a nation that wasn't always fair to her people, and she couldn't stay silent. Calmly but firmly, she spoke up. That young man deserves the same respect you'd give your own son. The officers turned to her with sharp glares. One smirked. The other stepped closer. Ma'am, this is none of your business. Stay quiet. Amara didn't budge. Justice is everyone's business. That's when the situation escalated. In front of the stunned courtroom, the cops grabbed her arm, shoved her against the wall, and slapped on cold steel handcuffs. Gasps filled the air. A black woman. A decorated general. Shackled like a criminal, for daring to talk back. But what those officers didn't know was that within the next 10 minutes, their entire careers would crumble. The call that changed everything. Dragged out into the hallway, Amara kept her chin high. She had faced dictators, insurgents, and the brutality of war. A pair of arrogant cops didn't scare her. One officer muttered, "You people never learn your place." Years later, Danielle worked as a paralegal. She dreamed of becoming a lawyer, maybe even a judge one day. She spent nights studying law textbooks after long shifts, determined to prove she was more than the limits society placed on her. But one evening, while walking home, her life turned upside down. Police stopped her. They said she fit the description of a robbery suspect. She protested, showed her work badge, even begged them to check the surveillance cameras at her office. But the officers weren't interested in truth, they were interested in power. They arrested her. Charged her with resisting. Threw her in a cell. Her dignity was stripped, her voice silenced. For 2 nights, she sat on a cold bench, replaying her mother's words, "You gotta be 4 times stronger." Chapter 3, Courtroom Humiliation. On the day of her hearing, Danielle stood in court wearing a borrowed blouse and skirt, wrists shackled. She expected fairness. She expected at least to be heard. Instead, she was treated like a criminal before she even spoke. When she tried to explain herself, a white officer shouted, "Shut up. You speak when spoken to." Danielle, trembling but defiant, lifted her chin and said, "I have the right to speak. I have the right to defend myself." The officer's face twisted with anger. And then, slap. The blow echoed in the room, as if meant not just for her, but for every person who ever dared to demand justice. The courtroom froze. The judge lowered his eyes. Nobody moved. It was as if the system itself wanted her silent. But Danielle didn't cry. She didn't bow her head. She whispered to herself, "They will not break me." Chapter 4, The Turning Point. What happened next shocked everyone. The judge, instead of ignoring the slap, slammed his gavel down. "This is unacceptable," he thundered. "Officer, step back." Murmurs spread across the courtroom. The officer looked stunned, as if he'd expected protection, not punishment. Then the judge did something nobody saw coming. He looked at Danielle and said, "Miss Carter, I have read your case file. I know your background. I know you studied law. And I know what has been done to you is wrong. Today, this courtroom will see something different." He stood up. Walked down from the bench. And in front of everyone, he gestured for Danielle to sit in his chair. "Take this seat," he said firmly. "Because one day, you belong here." The room gasped again. Cameras clicked. People whispered. The very woman who had just been slapped now sat where justice itself was supposed to live. The Pentagon's response. Within minutes, the courthouse doors burst open. Military police in full uniform stormed in, flanked by federal agents. The courtroom, once so still, erupted in chaos. The judge froze. The cops who cuffed her stammered excuses. Release her. Now. The Pentagon official in charge barked. The handcuffs were yanked off Amara's wrists, but the damage was done. News cameras that had been covering the trial next door swung their lenses toward the unfolding drama. Live footage broadcasted nationwide, 2 local cops who had just handcuffed a 4-star general. Their arrogance had gone viral. Emotional resolution. But Amara didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She didn't let anger consume her. Instead, she turned to the young black defendant still standing silently in shock. She walked over, placed a steady hand on his shoulder, and said loud enough for the entire room to hear. Don't let anyone tell you you're less. You hold your head high. Justice may stumble, but it will not fall. Tears welled in the boy's eyes. For him, for the community, for everyone watching at home, her words were more powerful than any punishment the officers would face. As for the cops, their badges were stripped within days. Careers ended. Reputations destroyed. And the courtroom incident became a rallying cry across the nation about respect, power, and the dangers of unchecked authority. The final message. General Amara Daniels walked free that day, not just as a soldier but as a symbol. A reminder that silence is complicity, and that speaking up, even when punished, can change the course of justice. Her life had been a fight for freedom abroad. That day, she fought for freedom at home. Closing for video, call to action. And that's the story of the day 2 arrogant cops handcuffed a black woman general, only to lose their careers with one phone call to the Pentagon. What would you have done if you were in that courtroom? Do you believe justice always wins in the end? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This is Be Kind Always, where stories remind us of the strength within us all. Stay strong, stay brave, and remember, kindness is power.